But I'm very interested in this, everything that you've just said and in the answers to the other questions. And the thought occurred to me that we're embarking upon an election system now, and I'm glad we talked about the Board of Elections, which could be a disaster. And I'm speaking about early voting. And I don't know if that is part of your mission to try and get up and running a system of early voting that can actually work for the citizens of the state of New York, because I can't envision it actually working without some sort of computerization that we don't have and technology that we don't have presently. We just passed a bill out of committee and maybe on the floor to authorize computer voter books, which is the absolute minimum, I believe, in order to put into effect a database for accomplishing an early voting system. So I wonder if you have any thoughts about how we can actually make this work, because I can't envision going to a place in Brooklyn where they have 3,000 voter books and they figure out who votes in which voting district.
By the way, I was born in Brooklyn, so I can appreciate that comment. So we do not have responsibility, a direct executive branch responsibility for BOE. As you know, it sits separate, but we advise and give them as much advice and help as we possibly can. And so the simple answer to that is yes, we do, but it is not part of what our mission is. Our mission is to help and assist, to provide advice and counsel, and that's what we do for the BOE. There are other emerging technologies that might help facilitate what your desire is for either early voting or absentee voting. When I was discussing the world of cloud computing, people imagine rooms and buildings full of machines and storage devices and all that, and all of that is true. But the underpinnings of cloud computing, one of those underpinnings is a technology called blockchain. It's a new way to have secure transactions between two parties. It's a simple way to look at it. And in West Virginia, first state in the nation to do this, they actually allowed military that were deployed remotely to vote in absentee ballots using blockchain. So their votes could be counted at the time the election was being held, versus sending in an absentee ballot that might get there weeks and weeks later. And they had no issues with that. It was very successful. But my point is, some of these new technologies like that can be applied to that, whether it's early voting, absentee ballots, those kinds of things. That's one of the underpinnings in this cloud sort of trend that I mentioned, is that blockchain idea. So we can talk with Board of Election about that. We've given them as much advice and counsel as we can, but sort of constitutionally, we don't have responsibility for managing what they do, other than to help them as much as we possibly can.
So I wish you would, because I'm a little worried that we're going to set in motion a system that's unworkable without some sort of a guidepost, because the bills that we passed in both the Senate and the Assembly really give the job to the Board of Elections to roll out a plan. And that's it, with no plan in the bill itself.
Okay. We'll work with them as closely as we will, and we have, actually, quite frankly.
I think they need the help,
Yeah.
especially in New York City.